We're live.
Yeah.
Good morning.
It is beautiful out there. It's beautiful. Good morning, everyone. I couldn't do my grito today. I don't know why. I didn't really get that inspiration from that music, Mr. Cano.
Try to put it as upbeat as I
How's
could.
everybody doing?
Good.
We're doing great.
Doing well.
Happy Pride. It is Pride.
Friday.
Pride.
Happy Pride.
Pride.
Oh.
Pride.
Happy Pride Day, everyone.
It's Charlotte Pride Week all the way through Sunday. So we have pretty much daily things going on the Facebook and all the social medias.
Now, Jenny, last week was what? Pride, what? Black, I think I heard, or what?
Charlotte Black Pride was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, okay.
And then Charlotte Pride, we actually started activities last Friday, which was the scavenger hunt that's still going on. And there's also different nightly things. And then Saturday and Sunday this weekend, we have an 8-hour festival. It's all virtual. And then about a 2.5 hour parade on Sunday. And so again, virtual. I mean, there's not
do
y'all
like the virtual kind? I mean,
it's all virtual.
I know we can't do much due to the limitations we have, but do you think it's okay, the virtual side? I mean, do you kind of enjoy it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of the things, and Charlotte Black Pride did the same thing. Instead of doing an in-person thing like they did the year before, it was all virtual entertainment for about 4 or 5 days. It was all great. I mean, it was either learning experiences or entertainment. There was drag shows, there was music, there was a DJ night. So
now,
there's an incredible amount of talent.
I hear a lot from your side and some other friends that I have that are either African-American or white. But I have a lot of friends that are also LGBT in our Latino community. And I don't really hear much about pride for them or excitement and stuff. And today we're talking about between Black and whites. What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? How we're accomplishing each other.
Wait.
I know you're cracking up on me, but I'm learning.
Usually Jenny's the one who keeps us in line. So this is a great beginning because we have 2 Mega McCains on our show. So anyone who watches a view, that's something Mega McCain always does. She doesn't let Whoopi introduce the show. So it's just like, welcome everyone to Coffee Pandusi. It was great to hear. This is like what our production meetings are the night before. These 2 wonderful ladies talking about these issues, and I'm like, welcome to Coffee Pandusi. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts. It's great to have everyone on Facebook Live, also those who join us later on YouTube and also on Facebook. We want to welcome everyone who's joining us. And today is September, July.
July. Still July.
I'm discombobulated.
I can tell you I'm still on vacation.
Yes, today is the last show for July for us. It's July 29th. August 1st will be here on Saturday. It's wonderful to have you. So as we always do in Coffee Pandusi, we'll go around the Ready Button screen, introduce yourself, introduce your imaginary button, and then we'll talk about the show. Salute to Coffee Pandusi, and we'll get right into it. And let's talk more about pride, because this is those are great questions, Mama Ruth. So who is going first?
I'll go first.
Jenny looks like the first one.
Okay. No, Steve, go.
No. So I'm Steve DiFiore. I'm the Libertarian Party gubernatorial candidate for 2020. I'm also one of the members of the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County and a fellow anti-establishment comrade in arms with Christian Cano. You can check out my website at stephenfornorthcarolina.com.
Barbara?
Hi, I'm Barb Bacon. I'm a healthcare advocate here in Charlotte, and I'm still for gun control. I'm originally from Illinois, and as you've probably seen on the news, Chicago's going explosive on killings and murders and drive-by shootings, and I sure hope Trump doesn't send the feds in there, but it doesn't seem like it's getting any calmer. So that's my big issue this week.
Hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, and I'm an advocate for the LGBT community. Obviously, it's Charlotte Pride Week, so we'll talk about that more later. I do believe that we do need some common sense or gun sense laws in this country to pump the brakes on the violence, and then also Medicare for all. I think COVID has eliminated the debate whether we need it or not. We obviously have too many gaps. We have insurance and tied to employment. That can't happen anymore.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Well,
it's the first
Ruth,
time I actually. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mama Ruth.
Just because I'm Latina. Okay.
I stood up for you, girl. I stood up for you, even if.
Good morning, everyone.
I think more of a chauvinist.
Mama Ruth here, Mama Ruth Perez. I'm a community advocate for our community. And I feel the same way as Barbara. I feel that Charlotte is turning a little small Chicago here. So yes, my inspirational secret button is gun reform and also Medicare for all, because we're all in that same boat that we need a change for our medical health insurance.
Uh-oh, can't hear.
My turn.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts. I have many buttons, but the most important one to me, besides the Moms in Action and gun sense and gun reform, is Medicare for all. Medicare for all seems to be even more needed now during our global pandemic, as so many people have lost their employee-based health insurance as well. So welcome, everyone. Today's topic is Black and, oh yes, thank you. Everyone, as we always do in Coffee and Ponduce, please salute to our neighbors, Coffee and Ponduce. I actually have a Key West coffee mug because we are still on vacation here in Key West. We decided to stay an extra week in Key West since we can work anywhere. So it's great to have you. And I got you ladies, and I guess I'll get you too one, Stephen, since you're on here, almost the surrogate for Jeff. I have some other Key West mugs as well.
All right.
Listen, today we want to talk about a very important topic, and it's Black and Latinx Charlotte. Are we adversaries or are we advocates? And we did invite some other community leaders from all of our sections here in Charlotte, but also around the state, to talk about this. And unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to get that many people on. We may have one that joins us. I just want to start this off by, and the reason this is so important, because I want to start off by reading an article from the Charlotte Observer, and bear with me, ladies, because I'm going to have to, and gentlemen, I'm going to have to put my glasses on, because this is really what this is all about. It's about the power in Charlotte, is it shifting, and how it's going to be shifting. So the Observer article talks about the growth of, actually the title of the article is New Census Data Highlights Booming Hispanic Growth in Mecklenburg and North Carolina. And it talks about how from 2010 to last year, the country's Hispanic population increased 36%. The Black population increased 24.5%. And the estimates that have been recently released, this is just a couple weeks ago, is that's compared to only 9.5% in the white population. Hispanic people comprise 13.8% of the country's 1.1 million residents. That's not right. The data shows that the Black population is 32% and the white population make up 46%. So this is the country. So looking at that, it's very important that we understand in many states, the white population is not the majority in America. The brown and Black population is the new majority in America. So I think that's one of the things that we have to talk about moving forward is we have to stop calling our communities minorities. We're the new majority. And so I think maybe we can discuss that as well. But talking specifically about Charlotte, this is very important. In North Carolina, the Hispanic population has increased 27%, and just in the last year, it's increased 3%. The Hispanic population grew 5 times 5 faster than the white population. So we are growing faster than the millennials that are moving to Charlotte. this to me is what is from this article, and I suggest everyone read this. The majority of the Hispanic population that is moving into not only Charlotte and Mecklenburg County and North Carolina are not immigrants. They are actually from other states. So there's this perception that the reason the population is growing so fast in North Carolina is because of immigration, undocumented or whatever the case may be, when in fact it's growing because of American citizens who happen to be Latinx are moving here from other states, which we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about the identity of the Hispanic population or the Latinx population. Whenever people in power want to talk to us, they automatically assume we all speak Spanish because there's this stereotype, it seems, that they believe that Hispanics mean immigrants. They mean non-Americans or whatever the case may be. So the reason I want to talk about this is because Jenny, you have lived in Texas. I know Barbara, everyone has lived in other areas as well. I think you're probably from New Jersey, New York, Stephen.
New York originally.
Right.
Don't hold that against me.
That's what I thought. No, it's wonderful. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. All we have to do is look at the experiences that we have seen and other cities have seen when population data is shifting. So for a long time here in Charlotte, it has always been either a black or white issue. Every issue that we talk about here, especially when you're talking about racism, it's either about the blacks and the whites and the blacks. Well, that's not the case. There are other communities that are involved as well. And one of the things that I have sensed over the last 5 to 6 years being involved in organizations is there is some older Black Charlotte that's a little bit hesitant or concerned about the rise of the Hispanic or Latinx population because they fear that their power is being lost and our power is, they talked about that about our superintendent, about how they didn't understand why we had a Latin superintendent. They wanted a Black superintendent. And so these are conversations that we used to have. And these are the mistakes I think that other cities experienced in the beginning. And we have the ability not to repeat those mistakes and unify as communities of color and really take advantage of the power we have. We are the majority in America, and we are going to be very, very quickly. We know we're the majority in CMS. So just logically, we know we will very soon be the majority politically in Charlotte and in North Carolina within the next 5 years. So that's what I want to talk about. Go ahead.
But don't you think, and this is the thing, growing up in San Antonio and South Texas, and Ruth can attest to this too, the Latinx Hispanic community there, the border just moved on them. They were there way before the white Germans and the white Czech people got offered land by the Spanish government to come in. So the white people were the interlopers, and that's how they're viewed there still. And versus, and then of course they imported in the Black slaves later on, but here in Charlotte, it was white and Black for so long. And the Latinx community is really the interlopers or the invaders. They're the new arrivals. And you can slice it however you want, but
I would say the New Yorkers are the interlopers and invaders.
Y'all are just unwelcome guests. That's all. It's like we're gonna send you back north pretty soon.
Oh, don't do that.
Those darn Yankees. But I do think it's an entirely different cultural mix where you've had Europeans and the Latinx community living together for 300 or 400 years in San Antonio and in Southern California and places like that, versus this part of the United States, it's still the old South, like North Carolina, Georgia, and all that. They're not used to this. They're not used to that third wing of America that is the huge Latinx community that's growing. It's the fastest growing group in the United States by far. So it is
I'll tell you that I think we have a real advantage in Charlotte in particular. A lot of the people who are moving to our city and setting up shop to, seek out their own life, their prosperity, raise a family, they're younger. They're millennials or younger than that, right? I'm on the top end of the millennial sort of age bracket. And, I hang out with a lot of folks who are their baseline for how we group society is the individual, not any other arbitrary characteristic. That's an idiosyncratic thing that libertarians tend to do. But most of us don't really care about arbitrary characteristics over much. Like, we really don't. I mean, everyone loves Taco Tuesday. Like, that is what it is. And I don't mean to be glib about that. I'm being serious. As more people come into Charlotte from all over the country, you know, from New England, they come down to North Carolina and Charlotte because it's a great place to live. They come from the Great Lakes area because it's a great place to live. And with them, they bring their different ways of viewing things or aspects of like the cultures of that area. And, you know, as in my case, for example, there were still a lot of things about Southern culture that were a lot of fun, that were pretty cool. The friendly nature of it too, right? Saying hello and talking to someone at the grocery store. It seems like a little thing if you live down here, but as a fellow from New York, when I first moved down here and someone at the grocery store line was like, "So how are you doing today?" I'm like,
Are you talking to me?
Me? I guess I'm fine. But see, you adapt to it. It's like that sort of melting pot thing.
Right.
And one of the great advantages we have, and this is in the younger generation, at least for me, I can only speak for myself and maybe for a few people I know really, really well. We don't really care about arbitrary characteristics. And as that grows, I think it gives more advantages and a more level playing field for everybody, so that some of the problems that we had in the past don't necessarily have to be dragged into the present or into our future. They can be left where they belong in the yesteryear.
Hey, Stephen, just quickly, because I guess maybe you're using more than 3-syllable words. What do you mean by we don't really care about arbitrary things? Do you mean that, from your view, you mean that there are many people that are moving here that don't care about race relations, or is that what you're saying?
Well, no, like on an individual level, like for example,
Sure.
it doesn't matter to me that you're of Hispanic descent or male or anything like that. You had
That's because you're not Hispanic.
Well, no, but I mean, I live with a Hispanic. You know, my
No,
partner is from Mexico. So, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like you didn't have any control over that. Like you were born that way.
Yeah.
Well, it would be stupid of me to hold you accountable for being born a certain way. Like it's just, and you know, not everyone feels that way, and I completely understand that. But as we conduct ourselves in our daily lives, most of us just don't really give that too much thought. We care about your actions, what you do. Are you polite? Are you rude? Things like that. You know, do you like Taco Tuesday? Because, you know, if you don't like Taco Tuesday, I'm suspicious.
But I think that is an important point, from the fact that as individuals, most people don't care. I think when you talk about the powers to be, like political parties, civic leaders, people jostling for the power, the mantles of power, I think that's where the battle really lies. And most of our societal issues is like, well, I've got this amount of territory. Do I want to give any of this up? Because I see this as a zero-sum game. I can't. And that comes from a lot of, I'm not going to say they're necessarily conservatives, but they're not necessarily, they want to conserve their power. They want to conserve their base. You know, my family's been here for 6 generations, and I don't want to give that up to these new people coming in, no matter who they are. You know, I don't think it's necessarily black versus brown. I think it is more like new versus old. I think old guard, which is old Charlotte, which is you know, the black and the white communities that established Charlotte. And now they're looking at all these new arrivals. And I think it's a great point, saying all these new millennials and Gen Z people are coming in, invading Charlotte. And you know, from New York and California and Texas, they're going, wow, this is a cultural change. And now, you know, Latinx communities coming in and, you know, having their very organized, very beautiful culture coming in, but it is very powerful too. And I think Jenny, people pump their brakes.
Yeah, Ruth, Mama Ruth, you want to say something? Because I do want to touch on something Stephen said.
It's very interesting because when I first moved here back in '96, you're right, Jenny. It was very surprising for me because I was used to seeing everyone, different culture, and just chatting and saying hi and everything, not being looked at weird. So I think that the most biggest fear in this side of America, in this side of this country, it's how the powers can get united and overcome and break some of the back chains of good socialism, I would say, from the whites. And that's the most fear. So I guess the white and blacks are always they're trying to keep us distance because they're afraid that if we get together, we might bring that change like any other state. Chicago, Texas, California, even Florida, I have not seen so much stepping over Latinos or blacks when they're trying to do businesses as I've seen it here.
Mama Ruth, you hit the nail on the head, and that's kind of what I wanted to kind of talk about was the growth that we have here of the Latinx community. And the reason that the original title was Blacks versus Latinx Charlotte, but I took the verses out because it makes it sound like we are in competition with each other. It sounds adversary. So I changed it to Latinx and Black Charlotte. Are we adversaries and advocates? And I truly do believe that from the Latinx community, from my perspective, of course, our family's only been here, even though my family overall has been here since 1862, I've only been here for less than 10 years. What I have seen is there is this effort to marginalize all kind of communities by the powers in the Charlotte area, and specifically by categorizing us Latinx people as only Spanish-speaking people, so that way it makes it sound like we're not worthy of speaking in English or speaking in powers. But also, I think it's important that we take this opportunity as an emerging Latinx community to get involved with our Black brothers and sisters, to let them know that we don't have to fear the same fears that other cities went through early on when both communities were growing, that we can be adversaries. We are both fighting the powers that be. We are both looking for a level playing field. We're both looking for those things. So we have the opportunity in Charlotte to not have to recreate the wheel. We can do what other cities are doing now and work and be there with our other marginalized communities. And so in my view, go ahead, Jenny.
One quick take, and this is something you've said on a lot of other shows when we talked about especially race relations, is this is the first city you lived in where you were really Latinx. You said that many times, like everywhere else you live.
Oh yeah,
it's the first
another white person.
It's the first city that I've ever lived in. I've lived in Atlanta, Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio, Washington, D.C., a lot of very, very big cities. It's the first city I've ever lived in, professionally or personally, where I didn't have to be afraid of being gay. If you're gay, the white community accepts you as long as you're not a dark gay person. If you're a lighter skinned gay person, you're one of the good gays. But if you're a Latino, where are you from? And I never felt Latinx until I moved here. So go ahead, I'm sorry, Jenny.
Which I think is very bizarre.
I think I feel the same way, even though I'm not a LGBT, but I feel like we being excluded from the right tables, and we have the right to be on the same table as anybody else. So yes, I agree with Chris on that.
But do you think it's because the Latinx community has grown so much here, but it's been a lately thing? Like, it's not like if you go back 20 years ago and pull the statistics, I don't think there was a very big Latinx population here. And now that they're seeing that influx, I think it's really the same way when I go in certain spaces that maybe struggle with me a little bit. There's like in certain spaces where people of color really struggle with LGBT people, especially people that are visibly queer, that I've been in, where I've been uncomfortable because they don't seem comfortable with me. And so I think I think when you're visibly different, but you're not what they're used to, they see that as a threat. You know, maybe not a threat like you're going to take over, but more as, oh, that's another group I got to share power with. This is another group I've got to overcome. And it may not even think about it consciously that way, but it may be just a defense mechanism. I'm primarily talking about the Black indigenous population that's going, do we really have to put up with this now? You know, not so much they don't like the brown community. I think it's more like, do I really want to battle against one more group? I already got to deal with the white people. You know, do I need to put another brick on top of this? You know, and I think that may be more where it is, and maybe not as much of a cultural understanding that you'd see in San Antonio, where you have Fiesta, you have so many cultural melting pot things that we're just used to everybody just being a person in San Antonio, and just a mixed community.
Hey, Jenny, that's a very good point. That was the whole reason why I wanted to kind of let our audience know that it's really hard to have this conversation without members of those communities here. Yeah. And I apologize to those members that we've asked who've been on the show before for the lateness in the invite. I'm still on vacation time. I apologize about that. But I think this is an opportunity for those who watch the show later, and also those who are watching it now as well, we have time, or as Jorge says, Charlotte is still clay. It can still be molded. It's not hardened yet. We can still move forward in a way that brings both communities into the conversation. Obviously, it would be helpful if our Black community took the lead, since they have, quite honestly, a lot more political power than we do. They held a lot of offices. But the reality is, I don't know why the Black and brown community even worries about the white community anymore. They are not the majority. Give up on them. They're not going to embrace us. If they haven't embraced you now, they're not going to turn over tomorrow and say, come, take part of my success, take part of my neighborhood. They're not going to do that. When people show you who they are, believe them. Give up on them. Let's focus on our own power. Let's focus on our own businesses, doing the own things that we're doing. This is the same advice I give to the Democratic Party. Why are you worried about a few white women, moderate voters? Worry about the base, the Black and the brown young people. And so that's kind of what I'm saying.
I think there's two struggles here in Charlotte for the Latinx community. Is one that most of the Latinx organizations have more to do with community support rather than being political like a LULAC. So there's not a decided political force here that you go, wow, oh, I don't want to take them on. You know, let's figure this out. Whereas the NAACP is so strong here, and the political Black caucus is so strong and so entrenched. They have a very clear political activist voice. The Latinx community does not. There is no organization where that puts you on your heels. I think the second thing is that we can see with Jorge's run last year, the Latinx community didn't support him very well.
Right.
And they didn't come out in droves to vote him, and he would have been the first city council person that was of Latinx descent had he been elected. And so I think there's still those barriers. I think there's those ceilings that the Latinx community need to view that be on par with Black and white people.
And you're right, Jenny. That's something that we've been dragging for centuries in the Latino I wouldn't say community, I would say our own race, different cultures. Because y'all might think just because we're Latinos or Hispanics, we all share the same cultures. There's a big difference between being Colombian, like Manolo, Jorge Cuban, Central American, where my parents are from Nicaragua, and my husband from Mexico. We don't share all the same thoughts or the same way how politics runs. We don't share the same rights that we have to demand. For Jorge in Cuba, you got to think it's a communist country. So right. Yes, they have more privileges here because everything that goes around through the news. Mexico get rejected. Why? Because they think that it's of the house of the cartel. Colombia, I mean, there's a lot of different pieces to this puzzle between and among us. to help and support each other. Now,
So,
go ahead.
And I think the big difference too, and that's a very important point, is the origin story of the two different groups. So, you know, the majority of Black people that live in this country are not all African American, but most of them are. But they also are descended from slavery. You know, they didn't come over here on a cruise ship. You know, they came in as victims of human trafficking and war crimes. You know, versus, you know, whether you came from Cuba or you came from Mexico or whatever. For the most part, you came over voluntarily. You know, maybe, you know, you might be fleeing war or something like that, but you came over on your own volition. You didn't come over here as a slave. And two, the origin stories of the different Latin American immigrants. You know, if you come from Mexico, you have a way different story than if you fled Havana in Cuba and came on a raft. You know, it's two way different beginnings. And I think even those will view people from Mexico in a different light. Like Cubans, I've seen sometimes even kind of look down at people from Mexico, saying, well, you need to do it the right way, or you need to do this. You're just coming over the border.
Not only that,
so Jenny,
not only that, my parents that arrived from Nicaragua, they didn't go through the struggle of crossing the border or waiting as Cuban people to get to the country in order to get legalized. You know, we came, you know, in the right way. So sometimes we also get rejected by our own Latinos because they think that we were privileged.
Oh.
Yeah. So let's circle back to how this impacts Charlotte and North Carolina specifically. So when we're talking about Charlotte, for example, we don't have a chapter of LULAC. I'm a LULAC member. We've been starting to trying to get a chapter started for a year. Right.
For those who don't know what that is, can you let us know?
The League of United Latin American Citizens. It's the oldest civil rights group in America, actually. NAACP is one of the most known and most powerful, but this is what's really important, is we have to accept some of the responsibility in our Latinx community, specifically our Latinx leaders that have come, who have been here for a while. Many of them are members of the Latin American Chamber. They do not attend any Black events. They're not members of the NAACP. They would consider themselves more white than Black. The people they do business with is white. Everything they do is white. And so those members have laid a really rocky foundation for our relationship with our Black leaders and community. I have been to many, I'm a member of NAACP. I have never seen one of our Latinx leaders, whether they're a chamber member, whether they're a political member, whether they are on all kinds of areas here. I've never seen them supporting our NAACP or those groups. And so I understand why there is this concern between the relationship, but we have the opportunity to change that narrative. We have an opportunity to change that. We can start holding forums with our Black leaders, and let's go around those not Black leaders, I apologize, our Latinx leaders. Let's go around Nordstrom Media. Nordstrom Media wants us to stay Spanish speaking so they can sell to only Spanish speaking. Nordstrom Media doesn't want people to think that Latinx people speak English. Why? Because then you won't advertise on the radio. We're more than just that. And so we need to start reaching out to all of the groups. My own Democratic Party is even more guiltier of that. Our Democratic Party, they in their mind, I think they reflect most North Carolinians, white North Carolinians, Latinx people are Spanish-speaking people. It's not the same. And so that's kind of how they view us as well. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm a Democratic Libertarian. One of the things that I've been most impressed about the Libertarian Party, and not just because Jeff is one of our co-hosts, is the Libertarian Party is the only party that has consistently over the last 4 years with the Cano Institute been publishing things about the undocumented immigration issue. Every day they are publishing things about how we should get rid of ICE, how they're abusing their power. Those are things the Democratic Party hasn't been talking about. The Republican Party definitely hasn't been talking about it. The Libertarian Party is the only one that has been speaking to that conversation. So there's a lot of things I think that
it's a civil rights issue, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't read into the hearts and minds of Democratic Party leadership or Republican Party leadership, but I can only suspect that the issue of the immigration crisis, or, you know, basically the issue that's really affecting so many lives in America, is not being fixed, because if it was, they would have nothing to campaign on.
Yeah.
Well,
I agree.
I disagree with that, what you just said, Steve, from the fact that I think we have always railed against new arrivals in this country. We've always made it hard on new arrivals, and I can speak to being a second generation American, that the stories that my grandparents told me about being here and
German, right?
having a heavy accent. What?
German.
Yeah, and I think
German.
German, Czech, and just when you're different, whether it's an accent or a skin color or whatever, Americans have always pushed back that new generation of arrivals. When the Irish started showing up, they were treated poorly. Every generation of new arrivals is always treated that way, and I think that's part of our origin story, almost like a rite of passage. Not that it makes it good, but the Libertarian Party does have a great stance on abolishing ICE, which I think there's a better way. I don't think we need internment camps or concentration camps to address undocumented people. I think if you get here, we go by the Constitution. If you land on this soil, you're an American, even though
So Jenny, question. Sorry to interrupt you, but
go for it.
Quickly, from as a white woman in Charlotte, and Barbara as a white woman in Charlotte, and I don't want to put you, if you don't want to answer this, I understand, but how do you view the Black and brown relationship in Charlotte?
I'll let Barbara go
Your
first.
Well, from the few meetings that I attended with Tira being on her campaign, I felt a little ostracized because I don't know any of them. So it was difficult, but I felt accepted after they knew I was on a campaign. So that gave me a little bit of an edge. But for example, I met Ruth and Jorge at one of Ed Drake's Friday morning coffees, and they're like, "Who are they?" I said, "What do you mean, who are they? They came to the meeting. Who invited them? How did they get here?" And they said, "Oh, we thought you did." And I said, "I didn't do that. I don't know them. I just met them." It doesn't.
Wait, hold on a second. Let me touch on that. So what you're saying is that you were at one of Ed Drake's meetings,
Which I always
and
yeah.
Okay, and Ruth and Jorge showed up, and you don't have to tell us who it was, but the Ed Drake's crowd, want to know who are they?
Not a lot of people, but several men that I know.
I don't think it was Drake's crowd.
Huh?
I don't think it was Drake's crowd. I think whoever the attendees surprised themselves by us being Latinos attending the meeting.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Well,
And I just had to. I said I just met them. I don't know who they are, and I intend to meet them. And I said, remember, I'm an independent voter. I don't have to be beholden to the Democrats or the Republicans. I'm going to meet them and get to know them, but I just don't see any cohesiveness in any of the groups that I've been in. It's like everybody stays separate.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's confusing to me, because part of the reason I started going to Ed's meetings were to meet more people, and not politically. I really wasn't there for the politics. I wanted to understand Charlotte city government, because I'm ignorant about city government. My background is federal and state government, and I didn't know anything about it. I've met a lot of people. It's been great, but every time I go to a mixed group, everybody seems separate to me, and there's no effort being made to bring everybody together. So your whole premise of this are the Blacks and the Browns working together? I don't think so. And when I attended Jorge's watch party, Art and I were shocked that he didn't get the Latinx vote. I really was astounded. I went up to his campaign. I said, "What happened?" "We don't know, but we're going to find out." And I was surprised that they were surprised. So it made me feel sad. And I don't know how you fix it because I've looked for organizations of independent voters and I don't find any.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly
Well,
not doing it now, but
Well,
it's just been a learning experience for me. But that's my opinion.
well, the good news is Jenny knows how to fix it. Jenny, tell us from your point of view.
And I'm always right, so there you go. You know, plus
Because she sits on the right.
The weather on the 8s every hour on the hour. But anyway, I think that there's a couple social dynamics that you get from the Latinx community that you don't get from the Black community. For one, we have 2 of the 5 panelists on here today that are in mixed relationships. The white person that's with a Latinx person, and so I think you don't see that as common in the Black community. It's still, I don't know. At times you can see almost like a pushback even from the Black community, where there's a movement of Black men that says we only date Black women, and I saw it on Instagram the other day. It was really, hey, we need to really support and date within our community. And I think there's still that hard segregation as a self-defense mechanism. And so I think some of it's just like martial arts. I think they just learned to fight for so long, and for good reason. There's not a reason for them to stop fighting. But I think they just view Latinx as really just an extension of the white community in a lot of ways, because we intermix so well. If you live in a predominantly Latinx city like San Antonio, let me tell you, there is really no segregation between the Latinx and the white communities there. They work very well together. And unlike the Black community in San Antonio, does not mix well with them. So you've not seen assimilation at all. Everybody that's Black predominantly lives on the southeast side of San Antonio and does not mix, does not intermarry, does not participate in a lot of the Latinx Hispanic Chamber of Commerce events that I went to with my boyfriend. There was never that intermingling that you saw. And again, I think it's because they took up the mantle of being against establishment, and they don't view the Latinx community any different than they would any other European community. So I think that's a big part of it.
Jenny, and that's very, very important what you said. And this is what we can learn from the people who are moving here. We don't have to recreate the wheel in Charlotte. This is what we know, and as we continue to speak with each other. In our Latinx community, there are many of our parents, and I tell this story all the time. My father was discriminated against and didn't even realize he was discriminated against, because the Blacks sat on the balcony of the theater, the Hispanics sat behind the whites on the bottom, and the whites sat up front. So at that time, my dad thought these were not the Blacks. And so there was this systemic, there was this belief that we're not as bad, so let's mingle with the whites because they'll accept us. They still thought you were Mexican. And that's one of the things we have to deprogram people to, this belief, this thinking. Here in Charlotte, regardless if we mix whoever, I can be friends with as many people, I can run for congressional office, I can get the most votes of any Democrat that lost at a congressional race in North Carolina history. I can do all of those things, but white Charlotte still thinks I'm Latino. And what we have to understand is no matter how much I ever try to fit in currently in Charlotte, I'm still one of them. And we need to let the other people that have been conned, to the members of the Latin American Chamber, members of our Democratic Party who are Hispanic, who have been conned by the white people, saying, we want your seat at the table, just not now, just when it's time. And we have a better opportunity to show our power, aligning with our African American and Black community, and giving them our votes and giving them our voice, because the white community is never going to give it to us. At least the current white community is. So from a strategic standpoint, it always frustrates the heck out of me when I see people worried about the white community. If you want power in Charlotte and in North Carolina, forget the white community. They're not going to accept you. Many of them are privately going to vote for Trump. That's just a reality. They'll tell you one thing, and then privately they're going to vote for Trump. We have to merge our power together and start making things happen for us. And not LGBT people are our friends either. White LGBT gay and white lesbians don't like people of color. Many of them don't like people of color. They'll tolerate you and they'll do the smiling and stuff like that, but they will only work for Julie Eisel's campaign. They won't work for Mark Terrell's campaign or Lawana Mayfield's campaign or other campaigns. There are only specific campaigns they will work for. We saw all of those people on Providence Road and all of the people down Colony Road with Dan McCready signs. How many of them have Cynthia Wallace signs? That in itself yes. Go ahead, Jenny.
Here's one big issue though, is that the Latinx community has embraced what I call more of the whiteness. So it's kind of an internal narrative too. I mean, you look at Rafael, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. They were two of the top 3 finishers in 2016 in the Republican Party. And so they, in the Republican Party, very white, very monolithic, very conservative. And they were embracing that side of society, which is distinctly, they're not aligning themselves with institutions that are commonly associated with the Black community. So, I mean, if they're wanting to align themselves, your leadership or your heads of your community, which, arguably Ted Cruz from Texas and Marco Rubio from Florida would be the heads of their community, as U.S. senators. And they're embracing a very white institution of the Republican Party in 2 very well-run campaigns in 2016. So
but Jenny, don't you?
Yeah,
but Jenny, don't you think? No, Jenny, don't you think? And just for those who follow us, after this show, about a half hour after the show, Jenny and I have a gloves off. It's not PG rated, and we talk about things a little bit more in depth. It's called Two Queers in a Truck. And we
but you don't let me press on that anymore.
That's right. So, but what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. You can have someone like Marco Rubio or even even Jorge, who ran for city council, and you can have people like Ted Cruz who try to appease the white community. They're never accepted. Behind their all back, they tell us they're Mexican. The white people do. And so no matter how hard they try, they still are not part of that group. So we have to almost deprogram.
Christian, whose fault is that?
Ours. We have to put a stop on that. Because like when you mentioned right now, white people only sees us as Mexican, you have to correct them. And I also help them understand and educate them. Just the way I feel that sometimes I need to be educated in some certain stuff before speaking or before something that I'm assuming that it's right, but it's not. So if we don't put the stop, that's why it keeps on going and going. That's why you see small little groups of Latinos trying to get together, trying to do something. Then all of a sudden it disappears. It drops.
I got to say, as me listening to you guys give your perspective and talk about these issues and have a different worldview than I do, I actually feel rather blessed and fortunate to be part of the Libertarian Party. And I'll give you an example of why I think that. I was at the convention in Florida, in Orlando, earlier this month, and we had our national convention to do bylaw stuff, party business, have our presidential and vice presidential candidates accept their nominations, the hard, heavy lifting work of a political party, because ours is a political party in all 50 states. And when I was there, you would see the beautiful, incredible mosaic tapestry of America represented in the Libertarian Party. Because we were all there and we all kind of we're a little different here and there. Like the folks from Florida are a little different from the folks in California. We're a little different from the folks from New York. We're a little different from the folks in North Carolina. But we all agree that, we view in our case as a political party, rules that the government has put in place as major hurdles to human prosperity and thriving. And, it doesn't matter, at least to us as a group, where you come from. And we don't as a group, we don't typically value things that people don't have much control over. I'll give you an example. The chair of our party, a guy by the name of Joe Bishop Henchman, I like him. He's a nice fella. He's from DC, but we don't hold that against him. He's gay. We don't hold that against him. His husband is much prettier than me, and I don't hold that against him. But, you know, we select as a body people like Joe not because of any arbitrary characteristic, but because he was, as the body decided, the best person for the job. And that goes for every position within the party, that, you know, even at the state level. And, you know, in states like, I don't know, Maine, where almost everyone is one ethnicity because it's Maine. Yeah, it doesn't look that diverse. But if you go to a place like California, I mean, you get a lot more diversity in that little block of diversity, if you want to call it that. And I gotta say, it's nice because you get a lot of different viewpoints, and you can have really interesting and good conversations and come to solutions.
I know Jenny wants to say something real quickly, then we have to start thinking about wrapping up the show, believe it or not.
Well,
but I will agree with you. Of all of us on this panel have tried to attend as many different things than what we know or what we brought up in. And we get ridiculed all the time, from young Republican events to Democratic events, Libertarian events. And I will say, of all of those events, the Libertarian Party events that I've been to, have probably been the most diverse and most accepting that I felt most comfortable at. And so I will give you that. The problem is they can't win, but
all we need is your vote.
That's right. That's true. Jenny, you want to say something real quickly?
But, you know, and I think, you know, one of the things is you have to look at, you know, the different cultures and their origin stories, and how they came to be, and how they came to acquire power in America, and their struggles other than white people. Yeah, and I think they're taking different routes to the same destination. And I think that story's still evolving, and I think that's why you're seeing such a push, mainly from Republican conservatives, about the undocumented. Is they're seeing this as, hey, is that group of people going to vote against us? Are they going to side against us and see it as a threat? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of very conservative white Americans see black and brown people as a threat, and they've done as much as they can against the black communities. But they're like, well, maybe we need to nip this brown thing in the bud. And, you know, how we do this, we keep those communities as separate as possible. We seed as much discourse as we can. And then I think also too, I think because they come from different starting points, black and brown communities, I think it's going to be hard for them to be complete allies for a while, because there's such different, and I think it's going to take the brown communities, the Latinx communities, to go forward. And I don't use myself as, I'm visibly queer. When I walk in a room, people have no doubt that I'm trans. Like, I'm not going to blend in. And so, but I go to these diverse meetings, and I go to so many different things, because I know it requires me to go to them. They're not going to seek out a medical minority like me. They are not going to come to the trans community and go, Jenny, let me invite you to all these things. So I just show up, or I weasel my way in, or I befriend libertarians, I befriend Republicans. It doesn't matter to me. I just want y'all to get to know the trans communities and prove that we're not as crazy as you think we are. You know, and I think that's what the Latinx community is going to have to do.
I completely agree with you, Jenny. And I have, believe it or not, only because many people know me from the show, but also when I run for office and I can say things that I can't say normally, I generally, about 90% of the time when I'm doing something, I'm in the background listening, watching. And that's really what I do. That's what I've done professionally. That's what I do for a living. And I can tell you that there is a effort from the powers that be in Charlotte, what I have seen, to keep our communities marginalized. And one of the ways they do it is continue to sell this narrative that all Latinx people are immigrants and undocumented. And that's the reality. They don't want to tell people the majority of us are not. We're professionals, we're married, we're just like you and me. And so they want that kind of identity. And as our Latinx community, as our numbers continue to grow, as our children continue to become of voting age, more and more than any other group here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we need to join NAACP. Everyone should be a member of the NAACP. They are a civil rights group that is powerful here in Charlotte, has been working for our community, undocumented, but all people. We need to join these other groups as well. And then we also need to create our own groups. And when we do create our own groups, we need to make sure that we honor the legacy of the history of our Black brothers and sisters, what they have fought for in this city, and realize that that we stand on their shoulders as well. From Velma Leaks to even Mayor Lyles. I mean, even though I don't agree with her a lot of things, she's accomplished a lot. And we need to realize that we need to learn from those things and embrace. And together we can make Charlotte a truly international city that represents everyone, that everyone has an equal playing field. But we will not do it unless our Latinx leaders embrace our communities of color more than they embrace what they think they're going to be. You're never going to be white in Charlotte if you are Latinx. And just admit it. At least you're not for at least a generation.
But
I think that we as human beings, just like normal persons, without any ticket, any bandage, nothing, we have to learn how to be inclusive, and we have to learn how to actually go out there and conquer. First of all, we have to let go of our own pride. If we don't let go of our own pride, we will never be able to see people different from us. And that's the big issue right now, because we're just talking about, and today's topic was just Latinos and Blacks, but what about our Asian family? What about our, other foreign countries' families? I've met Russians, I've met my neighbors across the street are, Ukrainians or something, a country that I had never heard. And I've met them, and, we have to kind of be open mind to be able to accept everyone and include them and invite them. You're right. We have to start attending and becoming members, but it's not only that, being active in our community.
well, I mean, and I think here's the other side of the coin now, is that you do have to study places like Texas and California where the Latinx community is very strong, but they have their path to sharing power with the white community really came from embracing the white community. So there is that too. I mean, like, if you look at Texas, the Latinx communities work very well with the white community and has learned to be a dominant political force in Texas. And the Latinx vote is very important there, but they did it with the partnership of the white community, not the Black community. So those people now, when they're moving to other places like North Carolina, it may be part and parcel of the fact that what worked there, they're trying to import here, and they may not see a need to embrace the Black community. Like, well, with the white community, we're also the majority too. So there is
no.
It may not be wrong.
I understand that. I guess what I'm suggesting is, and this is what's great, is there's many things that we can try here in Charlotte to not repeat the mistakes. The mistake that Texas made, those of us who live in Texas and have family in Texas, the mistake that we made in Texas is the Hispanic community embraced the white community. We didn't have to embrace them. They need to embrace us. And that's the thinking that we have to change. We don't need to embrace the white community in Charlotte. They need to embrace us. We are the emerging community. The Black and brown community is the majority in Charlotte. Why do we spend so much time trying to win over white people? They need to win over us. We are the future of Charlotte. We are the money. We are the customers. We are the people in office. And I guess that's my point. Yeah.
But the issue is, though, and we've all tap danced around it, there is one word. It's called money. Okay. And white families have 20 times the generational wealth that a Black family has. And the reality is that no matter what the demographics are, that white money, that white generational money speaks volumes. It's also, if you look at the makeup of the Fortune 500 CEOs, that's still predominantly white people. You know, that power there, you can, especially in politics, and especially if you're running for office, as you know, to win, you got to fundraise. And I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake for the Latinx community to embrace the white community. I just think that they see it as the shortest path to the goal line.
No, I think I understand what Kristen is trying to say.
Yeah.
I think what he's trying to, this is what I'm understanding, is that we as Latinos have to hold off already and stop making them feel like they're royalty and we are low self-esteem. So
Because
no,
what Jenny,
we have to be level up.
because what Jenny is saying, and Jenny, we've had this conversation before, and we'll have it again afterwards. It's a false narrative that you're sharing. The narrative is that Latinx people don't have money. We have more money as a whole than the white community does. There are, however, at the top, you are correct. There are people in Charlotte, old Charlotte money, that represent the 1%. And yes, they do have money than all of us. But when you put us in comparison to everyone else, we have the most money. So we have to stop this narrative that white equals money and Latinx and Black don't equal money. I've got more money than probably all of y'all on this panel, and I'm Latinx. And so
you know
we've
what?
got to stop this.
That's the bad narrative that we have not. That's the bad narrative that we have not learned from. Like when they, I think it was the culture center. I think it was. They had a show of the New South, and in the history, it shows the first family that arrived to North Carolina as business partners. It was a old couple from Cuba. They were the first business investor in there because they were the most powerful and more money in the Latin community that they have money. So you are right. If we put all together the Latinos versus whites, we do make more money. We do have more opportunities. The only thing is that we have let ourselves stepped over and not being able to show it off.
But Jenny, the reason I'm saying this, Jenny, is not to say what you're saying is not correct, because what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. But this is the conversation we have to change, especially when we're talking to our kids, our young Latinos, our young Black people. We have to stop this misinformation of teaching them that white equals money. It doesn't. There are some really, really poor white people. Poorer than Black, and so we have to stop using this narrative.
But here's the reality, though, is you are mischaracterizing what I said. What I'm saying is, when you're talking about the donor class families, I'm talking about donor class families, and I'm talking about, you know, multimillionaires and up, the people that really control campaign finance and all that. That's still predominantly white. There's no way around that. I mean, if you look at the Forbes 1,000 most wealthiest people and all that, it's still very, very Caucasian. And those are the people that control the narrative. And I'm not saying it's right. On average, the per capita income, that's a different discussion. But people making $45,000 a year aren't affecting a political campaign. You know,
no.
It's the Bill Gateses.
I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. I would not disagree with that. That the donor class is very important in politics. I agree with you, but I do think that what we're seeing now is there are changes in how we run elections. So Dan McCready would have been congressman twice. Cynthia Wallace wouldn't be up, and she's receiving no money from the donor class in this region. Cal Cunningham will be up 8 points instead of just 1 point over Tom Tillis here in North Carolina. So I do believe in some elections, the donor class can make a difference. The majority of the elections, look at all of our city council members, the ones that got into office aren't all. Julie Isel maybe donor class, Valals maybe donor class, Braxton got the name of the donor class, but not really the donor class money. Most of those individuals, Luana Mayfield, a lot of these individuals have won because of their efforts in the community. And so I do believe that's important, but we also have to understand that the way elections are changing and I think you've told me this too, is elections are changing now that you can win without money. You just have to have a good campaign and a good message. And so it would be helpful to have the donor class money because you would have to try less on certain things, but you can win without the donor class. And we have to let people know that it is possible. And you would think after all of these elections. Yeah.
I think you can, in a head-to-head race, as a Democrat, if I ran, I definitely probably wouldn't get much donor class money. So you either have to work hard or work smart. And of course, a big old stack of money is great. Yeah. But as McCready did prove that you can get a ton of money pumped in your campaign and still get
27 million.
Candidate, because Dan Bishop was, Bathroom Dan's not a very good candidate, and he still lost. And I think it's really because McCready didn't reach out to a very strong Latinx community in District 9, a very strong Black community in District 9. He stuck to the white charlatans, and the two events I went for him, they were both very white. They were very Charlotte, and they were very unimpressive. And I think Democrats, and I can only speak for Democrats because it's the only party I support. We have to learn, and you're right on the fact that the party has to quit courting just white people and soliciting just white candidates and promoting just white males specifically, like Cal Cunningham, Dan McCready.
Because they're assuming the Latinos are undocumented.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of selling point to the Latinx community, because in Texas, they're a great voting bloc. You look at like Henry Cisneros in San Antonio, that was a long-standing mayor, and super, super successful politician, and people like him. We got to embrace that.
So I was just going to tell you that I believe the numbers at the Observer article, and everyone please read the Observer article.
Is Cuomo Latino?
He's Italian.
Italian. I figure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A shame to my people.
So what I was going to tell you is that I believe that the numbers in Charlotte are lower than what they really are about the Latinx population. It's even more than that. And the reason is because Latinx is not considered a race, it's considered an ethnicity. And so when you check on race, most Latinx people just stop at white. It's white. They don't go all the way down to Latinx, or they just say they're white. So that way they don't have people, whatever it is. As I was saying that, I went online to see my voter registration. I'm considered white on the North Carolina Democratic Party, how they code me, and I'm Latinx. And so it is just hilarious that, and so I got to change that. I'm not going to change it, or maybe I did something. I don't know what happened, but obviously I need to change it because I'm not even being counted within my own party as a Latinx voter because they have counted me as white. So with that said, let's go around. This has been a great discussion. I hope we have another discussion with people of our Black community as well, and some other communities, our Asian community, all of our other communities that have done so much for this city, that are the new majority. And let's just make sure that we explain to people the majority in Charlotte is not white anymore. And so I know that's going to be hard to explain to people, but
math is hard.
Yeah, that's
math is very hard.
Words are hard. Tell us where you're going to be. Tell us, and then we'll end up the show. It looks like it's Jenny, Steve, Barb, and Mama Ruth. So please, thank you very much. Jenny, you start.
All right. Happy Pride Week. I'll be 2 queers in a truck here in a few minutes, and then I'll be doing Pride things the rest of the week. If you want to follow the Pride events, just go on Charlotte Pride's Facebook page or its website, or any of its social medias on Twitter or Instagram, and you can see all of our events. We have tons of virtual live events going all the way through Sunday. So happy Pride, everybody.
I'm Steve DiFiore. If anyone watching this, whether on the live stream or later on, and you feel politically homeless, and you live in the Charlotte area, check out the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County. You can go to our meetup, the Greater Charlotte Libertarians. We're an opening group, even if you're not a libertarian, right? You're politically homeless or you're an independent, but you're kind of curious as to what we're all about. Come on up. And if you see me, come up, talk to me. I would love to hear, talk to you, meet you, hear what you have to say. Because even if we don't agree on everything, there is some facet of commonality that we can find and we can work together on to improve some aspect of our community. And that's our primary mission, our primary goal. On top of that, I'm running for governor of North Carolina on the Libertarian ticket. Check out my website, StephenForNorthCarolina.com. That's StephenForNorthCarolina.com, all spelled out, Stephen with a V, the proper way. And we will, if you want to help out, if you have any questions, please email me, reach out, and I'd love to start a conversation.
I'm Barbara Bacon, and I will be handling construction at my home for another week. We've had a big setback, so I'm going to have to get out my cattle prod, I think. And I'm capable of it too.
Sounds like you're gonna be busy, Barb.
Yeah.
Ruth Perez here.
Yep.
This weekend, August 1st, there will be a drive-through food drive. You definitely need to register. They are looking to give out 1,000 boxes of non-perishable food for families that need going through struggles or anything right now through the COVID-19. But you definitely need to register. I'll be posting the picture, the flyer under our comments here on our show. And what else am I gonna be doing? Well, my mom's arrived. I have to take care of her, and then I'm still dealing with my family adjustments here. But other than that, y'all have a blessed week.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Christian Cano. I will be hopefully home by this time next week, back home in Charlotte, and we'll be continuing the show as well. And I do want to say something, because I do think that those who watch this show, sometimes they misunderstand. Just because we are talking about our Latinx community and our Black community doesn't mean we don't care about our white community as well. And so one of the things that's really typical about Charlotte is they don't believe that unless you're white, you can chew gum and walk at the same time. I can care about my Latinx heritage, care about my white family as well, care about Black family members, and I can do all of that at once, just like you can. And so before you send me these emails and start doing the chat about Christians are racist and all this kind of stuff, because I don't really care what you say, but why don't you like McCready? I still have people this last week that are upset at me about McCready losing. And it is just amazing how it's like these white women hold a grudge. I guess it's because they can't, I don't know what there's going on with their husbands. So they treat me like I'm their husband or something. But take the anger out on your husband. Don't take the anger out on me. So with that said, Two Queers in a Truck is going to be after this. And
Give them bacon.
Yeah,
No,
that's right.
Oh, that's funny. We're gonna talk about the bacon story on the next show. That is really funny. They're still here. So everyone, if you're on Zoom, stay on. Otherwise, we're gonna disconnect from Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining us. I just know I'm getting in trouble for this show.